Lesson 3-5, using the distributive property in solving equations. The big idea is by collecting like terms or expanding expressions, you can transform any equation into the form ax plus b is equal to c. Now I want you to remember the distributive property that we talked about. Remember, the distributive property has parentheses and it's multiplied by something. Therefore, this number has to be multiplied to every single thing in the parentheses. So 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times 3 is 9. So 3 times quantity 2x plus 3 is the same thing as saying 6x plus 9. That's simplifying it. Example 1 says, a $260,000 estate is to be split among 2 children and 3 grandchildren, and a charity. Each child receives the same amount, while each grandchild receives half of that amount. If the charity receives $15,000, how much will each child receive? Well, I'm going to let C equal the amount the child gets. Okay? So if the child gets 1C, the grandchild then gets half of whatever the child got. Half of whatever the child got, if the child got C, then the grandchild got C divided by 2 equals amount grandchild got. Okay, so our equation's going to be we have 2 children, 3 grandchildren, and the charity, and all that has to equal up to our 260,000. So 1 child plus 1 child, there's 2 children, plus 3 grandchildren, plus the charity. Charity is 15,000. Has to equal 260,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve for C in this case. Okay. Well, 1C plus 1C plus a half C plus a half C. So there's 1, 2. Here's 3 and a half. So this is 3.5 C plus 15,000. Pardon my penmanship. Equals 260,000. So, as you can see now, this is an AX plus B equals C equation. So the first thing I got to do is subtract 15,000. When I do that, I get 3.5 C is equal to, we should all know, is 245,000. The inverse of multiplying by 3.5, dividing by 3.5, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. 245,000, I'm doing this on my calculator, divided by 3.5 is C equals 70,000. So if every single child gets 70,000, that means the grandchild gets half that. What's half of 70,000? 35,000. Moving on. If I see a problem like this, I'm not going to do my distributive property. Example 2 says, solve 9y minus y is equal to 40. Well, it's very simple here. All you need to do is combine like terms. 9y and 1y are the same thing. So 9y minus 1y is 8y. The inverse of multiplying by 8 dividing by 8. And y is going to equal 40 divided by 8 is 5. Example 3. Here's the distributive property. The first thing you have to do before you can solve this problem is get rid of the parentheses. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 3 is 6 equals 7. Ax plus b equals c equation. So the first thing I got to do is subtract 6. Subtract 6 on the right-hand side. Leaves me with 2x equals 7 minus 6 is 1. The inverse of multiplying by 2, dividing by 2. And x equals 1/2. Yes, you can write it as a fraction, people. That's not scary. Leave it as a fraction. A lot of people will make the mistake. A lot of you will get 2/4 and you'll say that it's equal to 2. Not so. Leave it as the fraction if you can't do it that way. Okay? That's not right. Okay? 1/2 equals 1/2. It's fine to write it that way. Example 4. A company charges $29.95 each day to rent a truck, with the first 50 miles free. Okay, so it doesn't cost you nothing to drive the first 50 miles. Subsequently, the cost is 60 cents per mile. Therefore, if a truck is driven M miles, where M has to be greater than 50, the total rental cost is $29.95 plus 60 cents for every mile over 50. So if this was 60 miles, they would only charge you for 10 miles because 60 minus 50 would be 10, right? If this was 100, 100 minus 50 would be you'd pay for 50 miles, so on and so forth. Okay? So notice this equation because you're going to have something like this on your quiz or on your test here in the near future. Pay attention to how they got this equation. Isabel rented a truck for 1 day and paid $100.15. How many miles did Isabel drive? Well, we need to take this equation and set it equal to $100.15 because that's what this equal to. So, got to get rid of my parentheses. So, $29.95. 0.6 times m is 0.6 m. 0.6 times a negative 50. We know that that's going to be negative. 0.6 times 50 is 30. Is equal to 100. Now, what you should notice is this and this are like terms. $29.95 subtract $30 gives us a negative 5 cents. Okay, be careful with your decimals. Equals 100.15. The inverse of subtracting 0.05 is adding 0.05. Line up your decimals. That's where we have a tendency of making mistakes. 100.15 plus 0.05 is $100.20. The inverse of multiplying by 0.6 is dividing by 0.6. I'm doing this on my calculator. So 100.2 divided by 0.6 tells me I drove 167 miles, or Isabel drove 167 miles that day. Moving on, a little bit longer problem here. Example 5. Notice we have to get rid of the parentheses. I got to take 2 times 3k, which is 6k. I have to take 2 times a positive 4, which is a positive 8. Notice I have a negative sign here, so I can't just remove my parentheses. I got to take the negative times every single thing in here. So a negative times 9k is a negative 9k. A negative times a negative 7 is a positive 7. All this has to equal 6. Put my like terms together. If you don't know like terms, you're in very big trouble. Negative 9k and 6k is a negative 3k. 8 plus 7 is 15. Get k by itself, the inverse of adding 15, subtracting 15. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. I told you you're going to be annoyed by this. Negative 3k equals, what's 6 minus 15? A negative 9. Divide by a negative 3. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. K equals, a negative divided by a negative is positive. 9 divided by 3 is 3. That's all I have for you today. Distributive property with algebra. It doesn't get any better than that. We'll see you tomorrow.